Hi, we're gonna start with an intro into Grasshopper. It will be divided into various parts. You will begin with this file, and as you open it, you're gonna see some of the internalized parameters that I'm showing here on the screen. To begin with the basics, I'll begin over here, and to start with is the 5 most used parameters. They will be over here in the parameter section. All these are the basics that you need. These all have their own use. So this is for surface. You can just hover and see what it actually is for. So this is brep. Brep is boundary representation. So it's anything that's a kind of a geometry of this sort, but it is not line work. It is not mesh. Geometry you can input whatever you like, mostly whatever you like. So you can input line work and solids and surfaces all at the same time in one module if you wanted to. The mesh is just mesh, exactly what it is. So the way that you can kind of call these up is you don't have to memorize them, but you know that you most likely will just have to memorize this one. The other ones not so much, but brep is basically kind of like saying polysurface. So you can just type in surface, geometry for geometry, mesh for mesh, brep for brep. When you double click, you can type in point, and that's what that parameter is. So once you have that, you can set one point, and that is that point right there. Or you can set multiple points, and you create almost like a constellation. Once you click into it, this one as well, you can move the points away or into different spaces. Rest of the parameters are more for your use in terms of if you want to input a surface into any Grasshopper script, then it's the same way, right? So you have set one surface or set multiple surfaces. So once I create one surface, whatever I like, I can input that set surface, and if I do solid points on, if I change this, then this will change with it. So if I hide this, here is that surface. The reason why some of these already have their own objects in them is so I can show you what each are, and so you can remember and you can go back as a reference. But I basically have internalized the data. So if you right click, internalized data is grayed out. That means it has something in this. And also if there's nothing here, it would be orange. So if I cleared values, this would be orange. Another thing you need to know is if you want that same surface to come out of this internalized parameter, you can bake. This you can do with any other objects that you will have to do at the end of each script, but same surface from this parameter. If you do delete this surface that is in here, it will go back to orange. And lastly, if you for some reason are downloading anything from somewhere else or getting a script from someone else, you'll probably see every once in a while you'll see grayed out, or you will see this. So what that means is that it's not previewing. So you can right click preview, see here, yep, and then that way you can see the object inside it. It's just easier because as you build up different scripts, they will start merging. All the objects will start merging together until you will have superimposed geometries. If you want to see your final geometry, you want to kind of take these and preview off. And then enable, disable are good for if you have really heavy files and you want to kind of disable something and work on something else that in front of the script, so that way you're not fighting against this component that keeps running again and again in the background and slowing down your computer. Then you can kind of, let's say this is slowing down my computer, I'm gonna disable it, and that will just work on inputting these and work on the geometry that I need to do before I enable it again and have the final result to bake. These you will see along the scripts as well. It's just for organization. Basically, if I delete, it's just this line that goes across however many times. Sometimes the scripts are so long that you kind of need to organize, so you can double click and move these around, so that way I can maybe input here something here and it's out of the way. Otherwise it would just be crossing behind, and sometimes it almost looks like it's part of it. For numbers, you have integers and decimals. So if you want an integer, let's say you do 1, usually that slider will give you a 0 to 1. But if you want something a little bit larger, you can do 5, let's say. That way you can kind of get like a midway to 10. For something specific, let's say you got 5, you got to 10, but you need to make it higher. You you right click, you go to edit, and then you can change the maximum or the minimum. Minimum can go negative as well. So let's say I do -5. I do 15, and the range is 20. That's how many numbers are in the slider, and your value right now is whatever number is showing. So let's say I want this number to be 14. Okay, so 14 it is, all the way to 15. I can make it, if I double click, -1, and then you can move it around if you want to. So another thing is decimals. You can just double click and type in 0.001 if you wanted to, and there you have your decimal. It does the same thing as 0 to 1, so you can do 0.05, and that will give you something a little bit different, and it will give you every single decimal up to 0.010. So that's really helpful, because when you edit, you can give it a number. You can give it a 10, let's say, and you will have all those decimals all the way to 10. Lastly, the preview. So something that it's really helpful is if you type in custom preview, and then you have a color. The color is swatch. You connect it to the material, and you can connect a geometry. So let's say I connect this prep that is right here, and that prep right now is showing kind of this transparent default that I have. Usually your defaults, I think, are red. I have made mine green instead, but this can change it to white, or you can change it to red or some other color. This is just a representation node, so here I can just take everything, preview off, so that way it doesn't have anything overlaid. But this is just a representation node. It's just sometimes geometry gets jumbled, and it's a lot nicer to and easier to see in this manner than in this manner. which is the default that Grasshopper has. I think yours is supposed to be red though.